connects to our cloud by signing in. Choose our mountain folder, and then I'm going to launch our clinical module. And while this is coming up, I want to remind us that this is what we call the green screen. This green screen is the login for our application. The first login is for our cloud login, and the second green screen is for our application. And so if you're having difficulties signing in, it's important that we identify which screen you're having difficulties logging in with. So make sure that you let your practice manager know that which screen specifically you're having difficulty with. Your practice manager can resolve the problems and the concerns that you have in the green screen. We do have to engage Allscripts in any passwords that we have to have reset or rebuilt for our cloud login. They were backlogged in some of their tickets recently. So if you haven't received yours, hold tight. I'm told that we should be able to get those caught up by today. So hopefully we'll have those for you to get to them this weekend or on Monday. So here we are with our application launched. It's going to default to our desktop screen. Yesterday we talked about what our appointment screen will look like here. And then we went into our test patient. And we went through how to build our physical exam templates either from scratch or using the templates that are already built in Allscripts as our foundational templates and building onto those. When I told you that we needed to do that, every encounter or every template needs its own encounter so that we don't erase it or work over the work we've already created. This screen that we're looking at here, this encounter selection screen, is that screen I was talking to you about. Each new template that you do by diagnosis will need to be created in a new encounter. And so if I had done my Achilles rupture right template, you'll see here that the diagnosis is listed. If I've completed that template and I want to do maybe my Achilles rupture left template, or maybe I wanted to move on to a different diagnosis, I would click on New Encounter and click OK, and it would give me a clean template. It won't have the top information filled out. That's okay. As we're building our templates, we don't need that information because that's going to be patient specific. And so if I go back and pull up my test patient, and now when I double click, you'll see that I have an encounter. This is that one from the 3rd that we've been building on from last Friday and growing all of our learning on this one single template. But if I wanted to create a new one, we have this one at 410 that I created today that I could build a new template on. This does max out at 5 encounters open at one time. So you'll see that if you have 5 open, that new encounter option is not going to be available to you. I'm going to show you how we can close encounters today, sign off on them. I do want you to recognize and hear that this is not our complete process. I'm teaching this part of it because I want to make sure that those who have more than 5 templates that need to be built can close encounters and have more than 5 open at it, have more than 5 encounters to build 5 different templates. And so that's what we're going to do today. Again, I'm going to show you how to close them, but this is not our complete workflow. So in the interest of us being able to work on our physical exam templates, that's what we're going to do today. So we have our encounter here. I'm going to go to our physical exam. Yesterday we talked about what can we do, how can we be proactive, what can we think about yesterday to help us decide what templates we need to build. And so I encouraged you to decide whether you're going to build them from scratch, use the templates that we have in the system and grow from them, or whether you're going to do some memorized phrases for your physical exam. You might find that for your new patients and your rechecks, having a template is going to be the easiest way to create those. You might decide that our post-op templates might be easiest to use for memorized phrases. And if we wanted to do that, we would just come in here, we would click on our pencil, then we would have our post-op, our PE post-op memorized phrase right here that we could drop into the system if we wanted to do that. That's going to be provider by provider. And so just think through that as you're building these. What encounters do you intend to have in a template form? What do you intend to have in memorized phrases? And what do you just decide that you want to use your voice recognition system here in our notes box and dictate straight into here? So we have our physical exam here, and let's assume that we have this completed. I want to show you an additional view that is going to be helpful in building. I think I told you yesterday, I don't recommend that we go through here one at a time and open it and close it and open it and close it, because we could lose our place very easily, but it is one way that we can do it. Up here underneath our physical exam header, next to this kind of paper with an eyeball on it, we have a list piece of paper here. If we click that, it adds an additional column here to our physical exam. And it will take us through each of the areas that we need to document in, or that we could document in here. And what's beneficial about this view is that it will give us our E&M points for our physical exam listed below. So although it is duplicative of what we see here and what we see here, and then we're creating our note here, the benefit of looking at it from this way while we're building it is that we get to see how many E&M points, our evaluation and management services, that tie back to our billing. Our goal for this number is 12. 12 points will allow and meet the physical exam criteria for a level 4 established patient, so a 99214, or a level 3 new patient, which would be, for instance, a 99203 for those levels of billing services. Now, I recognize that that's not the only piece of the billing, the E&M services that we have to keep in mind while we're doing this, but it is one of the pieces, one of the big pieces. We also have to think about our medical decision making and history and all that kind of stuff that we're including in this. But in order to meet the criteria for our physical exam, we're going to aim for 12 right there. And so as you can see, if I go into my musculoskeletal, I do upper extremity, I go to my shoulder, I say that my right shoulder is normal here. And then I go into my other items here. And I'm doing it out of the templates, I'm sorry. That's just out of habit that we can add those things to it. And as you can see, as I'm going through these categories, I'm adding to my points here. So take a look at that. If you've already built some of your templates, go back and double check, make sure that you're reaching 12. If you go through your workflow and you think, man, I just can't get to 12, I've already done comparison of laterality, I've already done all of those things, and I've documented my exam in full, and I just can't get to 12. That's okay. It just means that we'll need to keep that in mind and bill at a 99212 or a 99213 in our E&M services versus that 214. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about what level you're aiming for in your billing component. So we are going to, I'm going to close my list view so that we are seeing what we are used to seeing here on our physical exams. And I'm going to show you what it takes to close these encounters so that you can continue to build on them and make your templates with, expecting that if we're doing a right and a left on our top 10 diagnoses, we're going to need to do 20 of them, right? And so we'll need to be able to close some of our encounters out. Again, I'm going to remind you that this is not our complete workflow. I am teaching you this so that you know how to build your physical exam templates and you can get those closed out. And we'll go over the last two categories here under our contact more in depth in coming days. But to get through today's physical exam, to get us to where we can start building those and get our library filling up, I want to go through some general items that you need in order to be able to close them. So the first piece of it that we need to do after we've created our physical exam, it's the way that we want it, we're happy with that. We're going to go to our assessment and plan. And we're going to go to our search function up here. Our search function is going to default to our diagnosis, and we want to have our diagnosis listed here. We're going to search for a diagnosis, and it will give us all of our options. As you can see here, we have a bullseye on some, and we have an arrow on others. If we have a bullseye to the left of our diagnosis name, it means that we need to get more specific. And so in order to do that, we would double click it. We would then come down to our current plans where it's listed. We would double click it again. You can see in our problem screen here, our diagnosis is listed as carpal tunnel syndrome. We're going to choose the pencil, and then we're going to be able to get to a specific diagnosis by choosing our laterality and clicking OK. You'll see here at the top that the diagnosis has now changed to carpal tunnel syndrome of right wrist. And then we're going to click OK. And then you see that our bullseye turns to an arrow. And that's so that we can make sure that we are providing billing with the most specific diagnosis code that they need to get our bills sent out most appropriately. If you have a bullseye like this, you can, I will show you how this one might be helpful for us in just a minute. You can see here that we have, if I go back to the way that it's searched here, carpal tunnel, I have my caret to the left, and I can click on that, and it will give me the options. It will break it down of what my options are to get more specific, and you can see that they turn to arrows that way. So I could double click on it, and you'll see that the left wrist carpal tunnel syndrome came down here with an arrow. I'm going to use my delete item button here so that I can clean up my diagnoses for us. But our caret tool here of using our caret and then seeing what our options are here is really helpful. In some cases, you'll see that for carpal tunnel, we only have to get specific into our laterality here, and we only go to the 5th digit out of 7 available digits in our ICD-10. If I use our Achilles rupture example, you'll see that it goes to the 7th digit here. If I click our caret, you'll see that we have more than 3 options. we might find it easier to choose from this sublist here on this screen. And we would be able to do that if we wanted to. To make sure that we got the correct diagnosis, my recommendation is going to be that, that we use the same workflow for everything, that we double click that diagnosis down in our current plans. We use the pencil. We identify that it's the initial encounter. It gives us our correct ICD-10 code. We click OK. You see that it changes up here in the diagnosis, and then you click OK, and then it changes it to an arrow. I'll give you an example of why I recommend that we do the same workflow for all of our options. So as you can see, I looked up radius fracture. We have our radius fracture here. It also goes to the 7th digit, just like our Achilles tendon does in the ICD-10 coding here. And if we click on that caret, you'll see when it expands, we have all of these options to choose from. And so it doesn't seem very reasonable to go through all of these and assume we're going to make the right choice. And so if we go down here to our radius fracture, we double click it, we use our pencil. We can then go through and say this is our initial encounter, it's a proximal fracture, it's closed, it's another fracture, it's on the right side, and then it gives us it narrows it down and gives us the exact diagnosis that we need. And then you can see up here our diagnosis changed, and then we're going to click OK. So I'm going to clean some of these up since I did give us more examples than we needed here. A question came up in our earlier training, and I want to share this with you. If we have a template that we want to use for all radius fractures, and it doesn't have to be specific out to the 7th digit like we were talking about, you can assign a diagnosis to it for your template purposes, and then you can change that when you apply it to the patient. So don't get caught up in that necessarily while you're creating your templates. You could use it. You don't need to create one for radial head fracture and a shaft fracture and all of that. If you're going to go through the same process, if you're documenting the same information, you can document it once, put a diagnosis on it, and then when you apply it, you can change your diagnosis. So keep that in mind. So as we are here, we're going to assume that we have our correct diagnosis here that we want to associate with our physical exam. We're not able to close our encounter and save our physical exam until we associate a diagnosis with it. So we're going to come here to our History and Physical tab, the very end of our workflow. And down here, we can see the way that our physical exam is going to present on the patient's chart note. We could make any changes that we wanted by hovering over our hyperlinks. It would take us to edit our physical exam, click OK, and then it would correct that here. So if we've decided this is the way that we want it to look, we have our assessment attached to it. For purposes of completing our physical exam templates and building that library, we're going to sign off on this note. To do that, we're going to go up to the top where it says sign off, right under our History and Physical heading. And we're going to go through this training much more in depth, and I'll tell you what all of this means and why it's important as we go through our subsequent trainings moving forward. But for today, and our purpose for today of closing out those physical exam templates, we're going to go to our billing level. We're going to do the very top one, which is the 0, no E&M charge. We're going to make sure that all of our printing packs are unchecked. If you forgot to do that piece and you hit OK, it would populate, it would generate a document. You could just hit cancel and keep moving forward. So we have it here. Billing level is going to be a no charge. We've taken off our printing packs, and we're going to click OK. So now our encounter is closed. So if I go here to my patient and I look up my test patient, you'll see that my encounter that we've been building on for the last week is closed. It's not listed here. If I want to see that encounter, I can come to, when I look up my patient, I can choose my new encounter. You'll see here we've talked about our face sheet that that populates when we first open up a chart. You'll see here in our encounter screen at the top right column, if we click here, this right here is the one that we just closed, and that's our visit template that we just built. So if I double click on that, I could launch it and see my chart note that's listed here. And so you can, it's a great way to look at it, is it populates here on our face sheet, and we can access that by going under our encounters, our office visits, and then seeing the encounters that we've built here. We could also go back to what we talked about a few days ago, this clipboard with our lightning bolt on it. We can click on our clipboard with a lightning bolt, and you'll see that our encounter is also listed in the bottom left of our screen here. Viewing this screen, anything that's listed here on the bottom encounters screen is specific for this patient. So if I single click on that, you'll see that here is my template that I created here. If I want to make this a template, I'm going to make sure, if I want to pull this forward, I want to make sure that I do not include my history and present illness to move into my template. But here's where I could see all about my options. Anything that is grayed is not going to move over. Anything that is in our black or our black text, when it's not shadowed out, you can see the difference here. Anything that is in our black text is going to be able to move forward. So I told you that if you wanted to associate a template with more than one diagnosis, you can certainly do that. If we do that, then we are going to unclick our assessment and plan when we move it up into our templates. So the point that I want to get to today is that people feel comfortable going in and creating an encounter, coming to our physical exam, filling in our physical exam information the way that we would like it to look. We could either build that off of what we currently have in other templates here. Making sure that we're checking that list on the side and making sure that we're meeting our criteria of at least 12 bullet points for our evaluation and management services. So we can come into our assessment and plan, go to our search function, look up a diagnosis. We could move it down to our current plan. We can get specific and take it all the way to our arrow to get as specific as we need it to be by using our options here. Choose our specific ICD-10 code, going out as far to the specificity as we can in our ICD-10 coding. Clicking OK. Coming to our physical exam, our history and physical, verifying that this is the way that we want our physical exam to present in our patient's chart note. Going to sign off. Billing level, we're going to do a no E&M charge as we're building our templates. Make sure all of our printing packs are turned off. Clicking OK. And then being able to pull up our patient. And knowing where to find our template notes by either coming to our office visit, which is here, double clicking on it, and launching our note to take a look at it, or going to our clipboard with a lightning bolt on it and identifying that it's here and seeing our physical exam listed here. So that's a workflow that I want us to work on, get very comfortable with that. What we are going to go through on Monday is an overview of everything we've learned. Now that we are, we're 8 days into our training, we've learned a lot. I want to show you what it looks like and remind you how far we've come in our patient experience. So we're going to do an overview on Monday. We're also going to go over how, now that we've built our templates here in our patient, how we move them into our own folder so that we can use them again and again on patients. As a reminder, everything that's up here in our templates can be used on any patient, and anything that is down here in the bottom left column is going to be specific for the patient that we're in. So we'll go over that workflow as well. We do have a couple of questions that I want to answer. We have a reminder from Dr. Motes, who is our board member who leads our EHR committee. He says, please remind everyone that memorized phrases do not carry forward into a template. And Dr. Motes, you're correct. Memorized phrases do not carry into a template. So if you were building your template and you have specific memorized phrases that you would like to apply, you can build those memorized phrases, but there is not a need to put those in your template for application. You would just, when you were working on a patient, you would then come to your pencil and drop it in from here. So you don't need to create your templates with this information dropped in because it will not carry forward. That's a great call out. Thank you, Dr. Motes. Another question, is there a way to save a physical exam template without having to attach a diagnosis to it? Unfortunately, no. We do not have that ability. The system won't let us. It's a check and balance system for our regular billing process to ensure that we're not sending over, we're not signing off on chart notes without having a diagnosis associated with it. So it makes sense in that application. However, as we're building, it's a little counterintuitive that we're assigning a diagnosis to it. I surely understand that. Again, if we wanted to have something general and not move it forward with the assessment and plan attached to it, we could just move over the physical exam portion of it and not move over the assessment and plan, so you can use it in that way. So we are out of time. I will stick around on our chat to respond to you in the chat for the next 8 minutes. I'll stay until 3:40, so please share any questions that you have there. I certainly appreciate your time. Look forward to meeting with you guys on Monday to go over how far we've come, to go over the reminders of how we got through our patient intake process and through our physical exam process. On Tuesday, we will start our assessment and plan training in a thorough way, we'll do that on Tuesday, Wednesday, and then we'll go from there. So I certainly appreciate you guys' time. Please stick around on the chat and let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, have a great weekend.